Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. It's 11 o'clock and we are ready to rock and roll with this 17.1 Ultimate webinar. So my name is Jason Barris. I'm SVP of Developer Tools at Infragistics. My email is jasonb@infragistics.com. With me today, we've got two special guests, George Abraham, who is our Senior UX Designer on Indigo Studio, and James Bender, who is our Product Manager for Ignite UI and all things web. That's George's email and James's email. I encourage everyone to use those emails if they'd like to send us follow-up questions or whatnot. As part of this webinar, there is a chat window in GoToWebinar, and we'll be answering questions throughout the webinar, and feel free to pipe in there or with follow-ups. What we'll also do after the webinar is we will post the recording of the webinar sometime later today, and then James is going to follow up with a more detailed blog of all the Q&A over the next couple of days. One of the issues I was just told about this morning was on this GoToWebinar, you might see a little black box at the lower right of the screen. That's because that's a little GoToWebinar thing, and it's how we control it, but you can only see it on my screen, so when we pass it to the other screens, you won't see it. I'm running a beta version of Windows on that Insider ring, fast ring, and there must be something funky about that with GoToWebinar, but hopefully everything else will work fine today. So let's go ahead and get started. We sort of started this story about write fast, run fast looks great earlier in the year, and that's kind of how we're positioning everything that we're doing in these products. And one of the big value propositions that we've always talked about, at least I've been with Infragistics now for 14 years, is about the great ROI that you get using a toolkit like Infragistics Ultimate. And what we've done over the last few years is really focused on things like developer productivity. We always had super fast controls like grids that scroll really fast, charts that scroll really fast, but the productivity around getting that done is something that we're really emphasizing now moving forward. So you saw that a little bit in 17.0 with the Xamarin product. I'll show you a little bit more today. And then James will talk a little bit about how we're going to push that through into the web products this year as well. So when I think about, or what I would like you to think about when you think about Infragistics Ultimate, is that as we move you from your Windows Forms to WPF, WPF to Xamarin, or WPF or Windows Forms to modern web, we're going to help you get there faster through developer productivity, through high performance UI, and through beautiful styles that really make you look great, make your applications look great. So Infragistics Ultimate, of course, has the breadth and depth across all of the platforms that you care about. So we have a lot of focus this year, obviously, on mobility. Even last year, we started on things like mobile controls and Ignite UI. Now we have a lot of Xamarin. We have a preview of UWP. We'll be, kind of improving that as the market sees fit. A lot of investment in web around Angular, pure JavaScript, new in 17.1. We'll talk a little bit about React today. Desktop, we're still investing in desktop. While this webinar, you won't see as much about desktop as maybe a webinar from 3 years ago, because that was the predominant area that people were focusing on, or our customers were focusing on. We see a lot of shift now to mobility, a lot of shift to web. And of course, Indigo Studio, you'll see some great features there today. And then as well, part of Ultimate is ReportPlus. We have embedded analytics now, so you can do dashboards and deliver really great experiences in a mobile-first environment for your customers. So today, with 17.1, there's 3 areas that we really focused on. Number 1 was modern web, number 2 is UX prototyping, and number 3 was native mobile. So when we're doing the demos today, we're going to focus on those areas, and when you leave the webinar today, I want you to know that, as you are taking your companies to and through their digital transformation, Infragistics is right there with you. In fact, we're a little bit ahead of you, so that when you're ready, we're there. And I think that's really important. You can't decide, when you decide to do something, the tools and the technology need to be there and ready for you to consume. And that's why we're investing a lot right now in modern platforms. And then, of course, we've been investing in Indigo Studio for quite a while, the last few years, and I think today you'll see some really interesting things when George walks you through the demo of what we've done in Indigo Studio. So the way I've set up these slides, I'm going to run through 4 or 5 slides right now, then we're going to get to the demos as fast as possible. All of these slides will be available for you to download along with the webinar, so don't worry if you don't read every detail or take every note. I want to get to demos as fast as possible. So what I've done is I've put the little orange starburst or yellow starburst on the area that we're going to focus on in the demos today. But if you've never used Indigo Studio, it is a super powerful tool for designers, managers, product managers, pretty much anyone in the organization that needs to communicate a vision or an interaction for an application. Indigo Studio is the tool that helps you do that very quickly. So it's rapid code-free prototyping. The nice thing is we have a cloud service, indigodesign.com, that allows you to share those prototypes with your stakeholders. You can do threaded commenting, get feedback. You can actually run the prototypes directly on devices. So it's a super powerful tool. Think of an IDE for prototyping. Now what we've done in 17.1 is we've added the ability to record and play back usability studies. So in a previous release in 16.2, between 16.2 and 17.1, we added some analytics on usability studies. So we have this story about usability studies at scale where you can create a usability study on your prototype, send it to as many users as you want, and then as they're trying to figure out each question in that study, we're collecting analytics on it. Well, that's really great, but what really helps when you're doing these types of studies is that you can see the video of the person actually interacting with the prototype. That's what we've added in 17.1. George is going to walk you through that in his demo today. One thing I do want to note, and this is very important to customers, is the second bullet from the bottom here where it says secure cloud or on-prem server. We have a secure cloud that allows you to share prototypes with your stakeholders, with your customers, do usability studies, but also if you have really strict security like some of our enterprise customers do, we also allow you to deploy this entire cloud infrastructure on-prem within your own infrastructure. So it depends on how you want to do it. Don't feel that you can't take advantage of all the capability of Indigo Studio and Indigo Design if you aren't allowed to use the cloud. We have an on-prem solution as well. And the great thing is, late last year, we introduced a free version of Indigo Studio. It's free forever, and we have a super low-cost monthly subscription. So the barrier to entry to get going with prototyping is almost nothing. JavaScript and modern web are probably the most demanded features from customers today besides Xamarin. It's like there's 2 questions we get. Hey, what are you doing with Angular? What are you doing with React? What are you doing with JavaScript? Or what's going on with the Xamarin? And so we're spending a lot of time in these, as I mentioned in the first slides, was as you guys are moving towards digital transformation in your enterprise, in your small business, and you're thinking about mobility, you're looking at what you need to do to modernize your portfolio, start moving things into different deployment models, different security models, different devices, we're there with you. So with Ignite UI, we're continuing to invest in this product. It is super robust. At this point, we're sort of beyond the 80-20 rule in capabilities. With this release, we've added a new Excel spreadsheet, which James is going to talk about. We've added a new scheduling UI. I was just in London a few days ago at an OpenFin demo. So if you're in financial services and you're looking at OpenFin, we have OpenFin capability, which is a container-based way to do multi-window environments across the desktop on pretty much any platform, Linux, Mac, web, etc. And that's the beauty of JavaScript in the web. It can run anywhere. And with all of the plugins, the extensions, and the technologies we have, which run the gamut of Angular, Angular 1, Angular 2, now 4, React, we are able to support you no matter what platform that you're choosing. So we built this product with extensibility in mind, and one of the nice things is we can add extensions as new frameworks and modern frameworks come out, so you don't lose the investment in the learnings of Ignite UI as you know it today. So for 17.1, we're rolling out React extensions. The nice thing with our React extensions is we have two-way data binding, which is really nice because normally in React it's a one-way DOM render, and we can do different things with this product to make it really robust. So I think you'll be really happy with some of the improvements we made when James walks us through his demo. But this product continues to be super important for modern web to run in any browser, on any device, even if you're doing hybrid apps with something like Cordova. Ignite UI is a great solution for it. Xamarin, we did a 17.0 webinar about 5-6 weeks ago on Xamarin, where we rolled out Xamarin Forms, Xamarin iOS, and Xamarin Android UI components. We're continuing to invest in Xamarin. So since that release, we've added some features to the grid. We've added some new chart types. We've added a new schedule agenda UI. The nice thing is we do code translation internally, so that schedule UI that we ship in JavaScript is the same that we ship in native mobile for Xamarin. So if you want to learn the one in JavaScript and then you want to make a mobile app and you're like, hey, I don't want to do a hybrid app, even though that's cool, I want to try out Xamarin, same feature set, same API, same capability. Then we've also added in Xamarin the Spark line. I'm going to do a quick demo later in the webinar on the new grid visual configurator, and I'm also going to refresh everyone on kind of what we did with the app map to show you how to visually lay out your screens. But Xamarin ends up being something that has a huge hype cycle right now. A lot of customers are asking for this. If you're a Visual Studio shop and you're doing Windows Forms or WPF, this is a natural way to start getting into native mobile versus thinking you have to learn something like JavaScript. So as we move forward, you'll continue to see investments on our side, on the native mobile side with Xamarin, and then in JavaScript in general. That's really where we're seeing most demand from customers. But at the same time, I want you to know that we aren't abandoning rich client. When WPF and Windows Forms still end up being super important to us and to you, and it's a large part of our customer base. Now, the way that we're sort of positioning our efforts, because we have a bunch of different platforms that we're trying to serve now, is that each release will spike in certain platforms. So this 17.1, we spiked a lot in JavaScript, and we spent a lot of time in Xamarin this year. Later in the year, you'll see more in WPF, and you'll see more in Windows Forms. Not to the degree where you'll get 30 new things every release, because again, these are really mature products, but you will see new features and more features as we move forward, and it'll kind of, we'll kind of skip releases. So one release you'll see a lot in one area, another release in another area. But that being said, we do have some pretty important improvements, especially in Windows Forms. We have a new control. It's a new map control. So the geospatial map that we've shipped in WPF that we have in JavaScript, we've actually moved that over to Windows Forms now. We've added some new grid features. One of the big things across both WPF, Windows Forms, and JavaScript was imperial date format for our Japanese customers, and then you can see there's just some other enhancements across the board. So still investment here. You'll still see continued investment from Infragistics on these platforms, but we'll also be spending more time where you want us to, which lately seems to be in some of those modern platforms. And then finally, before we jump off to demos, I want to touch on our embedded analytics ReportPlus product. So within your Ultimate install, there's a new item. It was there probably in 16.1, 16.2, you might not have noticed it, but it says ReportPlus desktop, and with that you get this SDK. What that allows you to do is it's a WYSWIWYG dashboarding analytics tool. So you can connect to one of our 20 data sources visually. It's like enter in your credentials, then you see the list of objects from that data source, and then you're dragging and dropping those into dashboard widgets, and it sort of looks like Excel when you're doing a pivot table where you can kind of move things around visually in the screen, set a few properties, select the type of visualization you want, and then you're done. This is a no-code experience, and what we've done is we have this in iOS, Android, desktop, and web, and we have the ability to allow you to embed it. So you not only can view and create dashboards in different platforms, but you can embed it in your applications as well. So if you have a need for super modern reporting, let me know, because this is a really cool product. It's super easy to get started and to use. When you install Ultimate, you can just start playing with the desktop version. If you want to play with the iOS version or the Android version, just go to those app stores, search ReportPlus, download it, and you can get up and running very quickly. So with that, I wanted to get through those slides really quick. Hopefully everyone caught of the main theme of what we were going at in each different platform, but I want to pass it off to James now, or actually no, to George first, and George is going to walk us through a demo of the new features in Indigo Studio around prototyping and what you can accomplish there as far as usability studies and getting your customers the prototypes and the interactions that your applications need, while also getting the feedback from them from those studies so you can make better design decisions moving forward. So George, you can take it away.
Thanks, Jason, for the introduction. As Jason was mentioning, the goal of today's demo is to focus you on what we have done for usability video recordings. But I like to start with this quote here from Frank Lloyd Wright. It says, you can either use an eraser on the drafting table or use a sledgehammer on the construction site. And that's really the promise of Indigo Studio as a solution, is that it allows you to both prototype these kind of software experiences and at the same time be able to test it with your stakeholders as if they're using the real application. Now, as Jason mentioned, we of course support the notion of commenting on top of prototypes, and that's great for team members who understand the context of the project. But for end users who we want to introduce early into the design process, they really don't care about that stuff. And that's where usability testing kind of kicks in, where instead of asking them to give their feedback or opinions about what they see as a prototype, we are asking them to actually do specific things or tasks for which the prototype has been designed. So the end result of having this kind of a usability testing framework is that you know exactly how much to prototype, so you are effectively prototyping less and learning more. So this is what Jason referred to as indigodesign.com. It's the place where all my prototypes live. Anything I share from the application is available on this website, indigodesign.com. And in order to set up a study, and I'll walk you through that demo, is you just have to find the prototype you need, and you click on Create Usability Study, and that basically adds the study to a study area where you can now specify tasks for users to complete. So for example, I'm going to specify a task for this prototype here. I'm just going to click on Add a New Task and say link a Dropbox to this app. Now this is whatever you type here is exactly what people would end up seeing when they take part in this study. And in order to specify how should the task be completed, I can record the task flow. So for this reason, I'm just going to hit record task flow, and it pulls up the prototype with a UI to record the steps as you expect people to complete the task. And that's wonderful, because there's a difference between what we think how people would use it and how people would actually use it. And that is why we are allowing you to kind of put your bets in terms of what you think is the most intuitive way somebody would complete this task. So in my mind, they would basically start from here, and they will go into locations, they would click on this plus sign, and they click on Dropbox, and they will log in, and the Dropbox gets added. Now, it sounds so simple, but trust me, when people actually try to do that without any explicit guidance, they're really hunting. They're looking for cues and signifiers on the UI to help them understand how would they complete this task. And that's exactly what we're trying to study. Once I've recorded this flow, I can just save this task flow, and then just like that, I can start the study and invite people to participate with a simple hyperlink, right? I can just get this link, and I can send it to anyone, and they can take part in the study. As I end the demo, I'll share a link with you where you can actually take part in the study to see what the experience looks like. But the benefit of what Jason also touched upon was everything is unlimited. What that means, you can have unlimited number of studies, unlimited participants, and unlimited usability videos. Now that really helps us pitch this idea of usability testing at scale, But we're not really talking about doing this mega study, but you might be doing tons of smaller studies, each lasting having 4 or 5 tasks for people to do, and each lasting maybe like 20 minutes. But you can spin it up as quickly as you can think about them. When people actually visit this link I share, what they end up seeing is a different experience. Rather than throwing them directly into the prototype, it actually lets them see some welcome text which you control, which introduces them why they are actually here and what we expect them to do. They will just hit continue, and this is where our video recording capability comes in, and we do it with the Google Chrome extension. Users would just have to install this extension, and with that extension, what we can do is we allow you to capture the browser tab, the voice, and the camera. That is amazing because if it's important for you to see how users are reacting, you can actually do that, and they can also think aloud while they're using this prototype. To start, I just click on this extension, and then I have the option here, just move this down around, to either turn on my camera, because some people may prefer not to, or change my voice preferences. I can start the usability study. And this is the UI people would end up seeing for your study. They are asked to do a specific task. So for in this case, it says find the file size for product strategy doc. So they would actually start the task and try to complete that task as best they think. And they would say, okay, I think it's here. They'll go to view properties. And when the task is done, the dialog props up again, and they can click I'm done. And that moves them into the second task and 4th or 5th or whatever. You can always randomize this ordering of tasks when you're setting up the study, so different people would get a different order for these particular tasks. But the benefit of all of this activity is it's unmoderated. What that means that you could actually send this link to someone and have a cup of coffee and come back, and what you see are results. And this is where the quantitative part of the study kicks in. It shows you what were the tasks you had defined for the study, how many people completed it correctly, what was the average time it took them. So that gives you a sense of which task was more problematic. In this case, you know, the task 2, 3, and 4, I don't really care about them much because everybody was able to do it. But for the first task, I can take a peek, and this is where our detailed analytics also kick in. It shows exactly whether the person completed the task. Did it take them longer than average to complete the task? Did it take them more steps than what you had originally defined? So somebody should have been able to do this with 10 steps. But this is all the quantitative part. But with this new release, we are also introducing the qualitative insights aspects, where you can just hit the play button, and that launches our video player with a full annotated timeline showing you the blue dots refer to everything which you expected people to do, and the red dots are the things which they did on their own. So if I see a lot of red dots in a video session, it's a clear indication that people were kind of clicking around, getting confused, and I can just watch that video right here in my browser.
James, the marketing action 2016 spreadsheet.
And if they have audio, it'll show up here. If they have video, it'll show up here. And you can actually also add notes as you are discovering insights. You can add them right along the video, and it gets captured here right in the timeline. So if multiple people are reviewing these videos, they can do that together and be able to track what comments are available on all the prototypes, or all the videos out here. Of course, we have some navigation structures to kind of jump between tasks or to jump between the participants. You can have keyboard shortcuts and everything. Now, the benefit of merging these two together, of quantitative insights and
marketing actions.
Let me pause the video. This merging between quantitative and qualitative allows you to get a very good sense of how people approached your prototype, understood what you were trying to present, and the success they had with completing that particular task. Now, this is amazing because this, as it goes back to our original promise of we are allowing you to prototype less and learn more. Instead of spending days and days trying to code this application, Indigo Studio is allowing you to do this in a code-free manner. It's geared towards creating user flows, just like you are familiar with user stories. And then we are trying to give it a task representation, which is slightly more concrete than a user story, to allow people to take part in the study. And that's the best way they can give you feedback and not opinion, right? You're actually collecting empirical insights. So with that, I'm going to turn over to James. But if you are interested in learning more about this new capability, you can always visit Indigo Studio website. And we have the second pillar here, which says instant usability testing at scale. If you click on learn more, we have all the how-to guides ready for you to go, like how do you set up a usability study, how can you participate, and this is the link. You can actually take part in a study right away and see what the experience feels like. And then this is the explanation of what usability study video recordings, the explanation I just gave. We have a how-to video explaining how to interpret the results of the study, right? So with that, I'm going to switch over to James. All right, James, take it away.
Okay, well, hi everybody. My name is James. I am the product manager for Ignite UI. We have a lot going on in our 17.1 release. I can only cover my 3 favorite features today, though, unfortunately. And I'm going to start with the new spreadsheet control, which we've added. And you can see it right here. Now, everything I'm going to show you today is in our Ignite UI sample browser. So this isn't some special code I threw together just for this that you don't get to see. These are all things you'll be able to go out to our website, play with these samples yourself. They all come with fiddles that you can actually go and see the code and play with it. You can hit this show and fiddle button. It'll bring it up. And we'll be doing that a little bit later in this demo. But starting with the spreadsheet control, what we've done is we basically created a Excel in the web experience. Before I joined Infragistics, I was a consultant for a long time. And I talked to a lot of clients about a lot of things in terms of how they want to manipulate data. And it struck me how often what they're really asking for is we just really want Excel. And with this control, you can provide a lot of those Excel-like capabilities. You can see here, we have tabs down here. We have different spreadsheets loaded. We have a formula bar so I can see what's going on here. In this case, on this cell, I'm using an average formula. I'm using a minimum formula. So we support all the formulas that you would normally see in Excel. And the great thing about this is that my client users, the people who are using this website, they don't need to have Excel installed locally. We're using our Infragistics Excel library, which we've been developing for years, to handle all this for us. So you can put this on a public website. You don't have to worry about do the users have Excel or what version do they have. It will work the same way for everybody regardless of what environment they're in. It'll work on Mac, it'll work on Linux. Anywhere the web works, this will work. And as you can see here, this is, as we basically set up a table here. We've got some data. I've got my information here. We've got great formatting here. I have my zebra striping on my table. My headers are formatted. Over here on my statistics tab, I've got some data here that I'm just kind of lining up. And you can see here I have a great selection of formulas available to me. In this case, if you look up the formula bar here, where we have count available, we have average, we have geometric mean. We have formulas in here that are really complex, that are really focused on the strength of Excel, which is some hardcore data crunching. There's billions of dollars in the world that are managed in Excel, and now you have that power in your web applications as well. As you can see here, we have just all these different features. All the formulas are supported. If I come down here and look at the code, I can see this is actually very easy to implement. Now, what I've done here, we'll go to the full page. You guys can get a great view here. What we're using is the Infragistics loader control. Now, this is something that's been available for quite some time. Usually what people will do when they're using Ignite or another library is they'll just link in the library. But the problem is, as these libraries start to grow, sometimes you don't want every specific feature. Some of these features can become quite big. So what we're doing in this example is we're using our Ignite UI loader, and we're basically just loading the specific features we need for this. We're not loading anything else we're not using. So this is not something you are required to use spreadsheet, but it can be very helpful if you're looking at the size of your page and you want to keep it low. It will only download the components you actually need. From there, all I'm doing is I have a div right here, which is ID spreadsheet 1, and I'm simply running the IG spreadsheet function on that. And that's rendering that div as a spreadsheet. I'm setting the height, I'm setting the width. There are other options that you can set. Those will be available to view in the online help. And I have events. For example, here I have active worksheet changed, which is an event I bound to a function. What I'm doing here is I'm looking at the new worksheet name, and I'm using this IG spreadsheet option function to basically make some change on that page. Now, in this example, just to demonstrate how this works, what we're doing is we're setting an active cell. If I'm going to the statistics tab, it's going to set it to E7. If I'm going to the other tab, it's going to set it to J15. So when I come up here and I switch my tabs again, I can see coming back to table data, it set my active cell as J15. If I tab off that and switch back and come back, at setting that for me. Now, that's obviously a somewhat contrived example, but when you think about what you can do with some of these events, and we have other events we expose as well, this really helps you kind of create a great experience for your users in terms of how they navigate the data and how they are able to work with things. In this case, we are actually opening the spreadsheet from a website. You can open from a website or from a local file. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. It'll basically read Excel from anywhere you need it to. We also have some great formatting options, configuration options as well. As you can see here, we have every font pretty much is available. It's just like Excel. You can make it look the way you want. You can hide the grid lines if you like. You can hide the headings if you like. We've just wired these controls up to events on the spreadsheet. I can turn those back on. I can set the zoom level in here if I want to zoom in on a cell. I can do that, or I can reset it if I like. Again, these are just buttons that we've wired up to events on the spreadsheet. I'll show you the code in a second. On the spreadsheet here, I can actually split the sheet if I want to free specific regions. For example, here, let me do that again. I've frozen the first row. So I can scroll here, and you'll notice that row 1 right here, as I'm scrolling, that's locked. So if I have headers, I can lock those in so as people scroll through, those headers remain at the top. They don't disappear, even if I have a lot of data and they need to scroll down. I also have some formatting options here. Oops. Let's try that again. Where I can see some pretty exciting options here in terms of how I fill the cells in. Now, I'm not suggesting you put gradients in your data on Excel, but we just want to demonstrate the power you have here in the ability to annotate your data using colors and fonts and anything else you would need. This one's a little crazy. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but you certainly have that power. All the things that are supported in Excel, so you can draw your user's eye to the specific pieces of information you want them to see. And again, looking down at the code, which is again available in a JS Fiddle, we can see that setting this up is actually very easy. If I get down to the actual JavaScript, all I'm doing is assigning click functions here, and I'm calling these spreadsheet options. It's execute action, zoom to selection, zoom out. These are all listed in the documentation. Pretty much anything you can think of is available to do programmatically in JavaScript. So you have full power over how your users work with this and how they experience it as well. So that's all good and well, but how do I actually work with this data in the real world? The current version of the spreadsheet is read-only. We will be changing that very soon over the summer. But to get data in and out, you can use an Excel file. And so as an example, I'm going to import a file. And this is a file I just chose randomly, found it on my drive or my laptop. I'm going to go ahead and open this, and it's going to load into the spreadsheet for me. And we can see here, everything's loaded in. It kept my, not only did it get my data, but it kept my source formatting, all my fonts, my font colors, all of the shading. If you'll notice here, I'm scrolling, row 1 and row 2 are locked. It kept that as well. If I come over here, I can see it kept all the data here as well. This worksheet and the original spreadsheet happened to be locked, and it kept that information when it brought it in here as well. So this is great. I can bring data in here. I can bring it into the web. It's easy to import. I can actually round trip it as well. For example, we'll come here on this generate views and save data example. We'll generate a workbook. And you can see it's a pretty simple workbook. But the great thing here is I can now save this to a local file. So I hit save workbook. What it's going to do is it's going to download it here. And I can open it up in Excel and drag it over. And I have this Excel data now as well. Now it downloads locked. I can hit enable editing. And now I can make any changes I want. So that's our spreadsheet control, and it really brings a lot of power to the web in terms of how users interact with and manage and work with data going forward. Another great control I want to show you really quick is a schedule control. Now, as a consultant, I always run into clients who wanted me to do things with time and dates, and as a developer, that gets kind of hard because there's really no great scheduling control. So I try to hobble something together using like a table and weird divs and weird spans that never really worked out right. And there was no off-the-shelf schedule control. Well, we have one right now today. This is the example of our Ignite UI scheduling control. You can see it's very easy, very intuitive for users. I have a month view and I have an agenda view. I can see my appointments here in the month view. For example, I have a marketing conference. I can open this up and I can see the details. I can change any details I need to. And I can actually delete things. For example, dentist appointment on Saturday. Well, I don't really feel like going, so I'm just going to delete that. Yes. And it's gone. So this gives users full interaction. And the also great thing about this is that it's very responsive. Right now I have this maximized, but if I shrink this page down, you can see, I don't know if you saw it, it actually shrunk those appointments down to the little dots. So if I'll drag this out again, my mouse will cooperate, and you can see that it's actually responding to the width of the control. So when I'm looking at a desktop, I have this information, but if I look at a mobile device, it collapses down to this, and I still have my agenda view, which works very easily. The code to implement this is very simple. Again, coming down here, it's available in a JS fiddle if you want to work with it. Again, we're using the Ignite UI loader here to just load the specific components we want. But basically all we're doing is we are assigning the scheduler to a div we defined up here, IG scheduler, setting the height, setting the width, we're setting it to select today, and we're tying it to a data source. The data is basically just JSON, and you can see here we have a format which is noted in the help how it looks, but our appointments are just basic JSON files, very easy to understand, very easy to work with. We also have this concept of resources. If you'll notice up here, if I open an appointment, you can see I have a resource assigned, Tina Friesen. I have a list of various resources I can use. These can be people, these can be rooms, this can be whatever you want to represent in your appointment thing. Maybe you want it to be rooms, projectors, pieces of equipment, people who need to be there, whatever. You can supply that information. They all get color-coded. So as you're changing them, the color coding matches what goes on the schedule, and it's easier to look at a glance. And that data is also simple, easy to work with. It's just a JSON array that gets downloaded to the control, as you can see here. Very easy to work with. Let me down a little more. There we go. So this is very simple to work with. All this is documented as far as what's available for features. You'll be able to see that in the online help. The last thing I want to get to, because we're running a tiny bit short on time, is some of the great changes we've made to our grid control. The first thing I want to show you is we've added this new banner at the top. This is an HTML formatted banner. So what this allows me to do is basically create a caption for my grid that I can style any way I want. You can see that code down here. And this is basically just HTML. Right now I have a span with an image in there, but I can put any valid HTML in there I want. If I actually come over here, I have this loaded in a fiddle, and I can actually change this really quick. Take that image out. We can say, hello world. If I can spell it right. And we can see that it gets updated and it changes this banner for us. Well, assuming I typed it right. There we go. So I can change that caption to be anything I want. It really helps with the presentation of my grid, makes it look really professional and really tight and solid. Another thing we've added is filtering by text. Now we've had this kind of filtering in this grid for a while. For example, age, I want to see everybody who's older than 30. I come in here, hit 30, and it filters the grid for me. You saw it went from 47 down to, or sorry, it went from 67 down to 47. And that's great if I know where my data in the grid is I want to look at. But for example, in this list of people here, say we're looking for somebody named Pratt, but we don't know if that's a first name or a last name. We could try sorting and filtering each column, but that gets a little tedious, and that's only with 2 columns. If we had more than one, that could be a little difficult to work with. With our new search by text, I can type in any text I want, and it's going to search the entire page. So in this example, we did find 2 people with Pratt. One was a first name, one was a last name. So this is a great way to find data in your page that you might, or in your grid rather, that may be difficult to find, may not be exactly where you expect it to be, and find it quickly. I can certainly, in this example, we're only using one at a time, but I can certainly stack those 2 as well. I can do a search by text and a filter, and that's just a great way to work with the grid and find that data you're looking for very quickly, very easy, and help your users manage their data much more simply. Down here, the code, basically all we're doing is we're turning it on in the features, as you can see here. So the last thing I want to show you is we made some big changes to group by. Group by is a great tool if you have a lot of data and you want to kind of slice it and dice it and see how things relate to one another. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab ship country and I'm going to drag it up here to make a group. And what we've added here are a couple new things to the grid by. We have now summary functions for each group. I can see here the sum and the discount. If I come down here, I can see it for my next group, which is Austria, and so on and so forth. Sure is a little bigger than I thought, but we can come down here. I can also add another column to my group by. For example, say we want to do everything that's organized by discount. We can slice it that way. I can see everything Argentina that is discount 0. And again, I'm able to see that data and see how it interacts. The other thing you might have noticed is, let me get rid of this. At the top, we have this order date after 8/1/96/3, order after 8/1/96/95. What we've also done is added the ability to do some column filtering here. To show you the code for this below. Bear with me one moment. This is my code. Simply come down here, and I have a couple different functions going on here. Now to turn on my group by summaries, what I've done here is in the features, I've added the group by feature, and I've added an array for group by summary. Now we're only using sum here, and we're doing a summary function for our grid. I could add as many as I want, and I can also add custom functions. So I can do these by group, or I can do them for specific columns, which is happening in this column settings feature here. And under summaries here, I've created a custom function. This is my text. This is basically how my data is going to be labeled. And I have this function here that's going to take my data and do whatever calculation on it. If you've ever worked with map or reduce in JavaScript on the array, it essentially works like that. It's going to take the data in. You can iterate over the data however you want. In fact, we are actually using the map function here. And you can return a value that's going to be shown in your grid. So I have the ability now to put some really powerful analytics and aggregate functions around my group buys. I can see sums, I can see some of the unit price, I can pull this custom function out for a column and see anything I need to. I can put these at the top or the bottom. I can format them however I want. So this really creates another powerful feature for our grid that allows me to determine how that data gets represented. And Jason mentioned that we also are really focusing on modern web. We have officially released our React components. Now you will need Ignite UI to use these, but you can get them via NPM or you can get them from the GitHub page here. You come to Ignite UI components for React. These are basically create your wrappers around your Ignite components. So everything I've shown you today works in vanilla JavaScript, works in AngularJS, works in Angular, and works in React. And it does it right now, not next week, not next year. It does it today. One last thing I want to talk about, because we're running short on time, is if you go to igniteui.com, for those of you who are interested in Angular, we have a reference application that we have released over the summer. This basically shows you how to build an application in Angular using Ignite UI, using the grids and the charts. If Angular is something you're working to get into, this is a great place to start. It will show you not only how to build an Angular application, but how to use Ignite UI in it. We also have still for available a free ebook that you can download that will teach you everything you need to know about Angular. We also have a new chat feature on the website. And that's basically what's going on with Ignite UI. Looking forward for the rest of the year, we have a lot of exciting things coming out. Jason spoke about the productivity features in Xamarin. We're looking to bring a lot of those to Ignite UI. We will have a CLI, which is a command line interface, coming out before the end of the year. And we're also looking at bringing in configurators and other things to help you be more productive with Ignite UI. So with that, I'm done. I'm going to pass it back to Jason.
Awesome. Thanks, James. That's pretty outstanding, the stuff that we're doing there. There's so much to show in Ignite UI. James, when you post your blog, we'll share it with everyone who attended the webinar, and you know, it'll have a lot more of those details. But everyone can see my screen again. What I want to highlight is there was a lot of questions about how do I do this, how do I do that with Indigo. Super easy. Just go to infragistics.com. And if I just go back to the home page, I'll show you. So here I am at infragistics.com. Go to UX, click Indigo Studio, and we have this great learning library. Learning library has tons of resources here. You can get started with how to prototype. You can understand how to do remote usability testing. You can do collaborative feedback and review. The other thing that we've done is we have totally modernized our search. For quite a while, our search was sort of like half search. Now it's real search. So I got questions in the box about desktop to web and moving to Windows Forms, or moving to JavaScript for Windows Forms. Now I know we have a desktop to web series that we did about 2 years ago, and there's all kinds of resources here. So we have an app migration white paper, migrating from desktop to web. We have a webinar. We have a checklist. We have all kinds of resources that will help you make the right decisions when you're going from Windows Forms to JavaScript or WPF to JavaScript. Also, I want to show off a sample that, again, it's on the website. If I go back to infragistics.com, if I go to Learn and Support, and you can see we've got all of the different forums and resources. We've got forums, blogs, webinars, but we also have this area down here with all of the reference apps. So let's say, for example, I click WPF reference application. You're going to see this Excel app, which is full Excel. I mean, essentially the cool thing of what James' demo showed was we have an Excel library that basically does everything Excel does, and then we built a view on top of it. And we've done that for Windows Forms, WPF, and JavaScript, and we have the Excel library in Xamarin. So if I go over here to sample applications and I just click WPF, you can see we've got a bunch of killer sample apps here. If I do JavaScript, bunch of killer sample apps here. I can click any one of these guys, like this guy, jQuery Marketing Dashboard, and it's showing me how to build, using the controls to build a dashboard app. Now this sample is the WPF version of what James just showed you in JavaScript. It is a full, like, if you put this against Excel, it would be hard to know that it is not Excel. I mean, this thing basically does everything that Excel does. It's pretty sweet. Supports all the formulas, the formula bar, frozen pane, split windows, all the formatting. You know, you can go ahead and you can add as many sheets as you want. You can do things like rename sheets. I mean, it is super robust. So if you're looking to do something beyond the tabular grid and you want to start using Excel, go ahead and download some of these Excel samples that we have, because we've spent a lot of time and effort on them, and they're pretty slick. Now, that being said, let's jump over to Visual Studio. I want to remind everyone real quickly of some of the 17.0 stuff that we pushed out for Xamarin. So I am going to show the app map. So I'm opening Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new project. Keep in mind, this is specifically for Xamarin Forms. This will ship for Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android later on, but all the metrics and data for Microsoft and Xamarin and us show that people are moving towards Xamarin Forms, so you'll see some of this productivity tooling investment there. But I'm going to go ahead and start a new app map project. Now, if I was doing a cross-platform app, I could do cross-platform app and I can just get like an empty shell. I'm going to use the app map. I'm going to click OK, and what we've done is we've created a really nice project wizard that allows you to select your dependency injection container or your platform and your platform to create your project in a more visual way. So this is the app map, and I'm just going to do this really fast. I'm going to grab a master detail page. So I'm visually mapping out my application through drag and drop, through navigation. So let's just do a little navigate from that child to that child. We even have a cool thing here. If I just do like a regular old content page, and let's call this page my login page, I want to use this with an absolute navigation because I don't want to go back to it once I log in. So we have some neat capabilities like that. So this is like a 10-second demo. If you go to the website, back to infragistics.com, and you go to Xamarin, we have every possible video and helper that you can imagine for getting started with this. So go to Write Fast, click Get Started, and you'll see more in depth. But I wanted to highlight this because this is a huge value prop, and we're the only ones in the world that are doing this, that are helping you build essentially not only the shell and navigation for your Xamarin app, but then also we've built a NuGet Power toolbox and then visual configurators on top of that. So let's let this Xamarin project get created. And I actually have, I built this already, so I'm not going to make you suffer through waiting it to debug, deploy to the emulator, and actually run, but I do want to show you what it generates in the Solution Explorer. So it's creating my Android project, it's adding all of the dependencies, and you'll see here that I've got in my portable project, I have my Android project down here. It's created or taken our default view model base. The view model base has everything to register commands, handle navigation, etc. The nice thing is you can customize this and use your own view model base if you'd like in the app map. We have view models for each one of the pages using the view model base that we created, and then all of the screens that were part of the app map we've actually created, and we've built in the navigation. So this is super slick. You'll also notice on the left-hand side the Infragistics toolbox. This is all of the Xamarin UI components in a toolbox. You don't get that from Microsoft. You don't get that from Xamarin. There is no toolbox. There is no drag and drop. There's no WYSWIWYG. We actually have some cool things like if I hold the control key down and do a drag, I'm going to get more information in my XAML element versus if I didn't hold the control key down. But we're doing a ton of innovation here. Now in the emulator itself, let me pop up this guy. I already have this guy set up, so I'll just open up AppMap Project 8, and you'll see that once this starts, I've got my navigation. So I've got MIDI child 1, MIDI child 2. On MIDI child 2, I had my tabbed UI, so I can jump in here. All of this is done for me without writing a single line of code, which is unbelievably amazing. Getting started with Xamarin is something that could be a head scratcher, especially with best practices like using Prism and MVVM. We do all of that for you. Now, from the visual configurator, I've got another project here that I did the same thing. I created a project with the app map. Now, one thing that's different in this project is I have a model, which is a person class, and then in my view model, I'm actually adding some data to that person class, and you'll understand what's happening here in a second. Now, keep in mind I mentioned the Infragistics toolbox. You'll notice that you'll see the XAM data grid here inside of the Infragistics toolbox. The way the Infragistics toolbox works is if I manage my NuGet packages for this solution, and I'm going to go ahead and look at my local Infragistics feed, it will show in the toolbox the things that I've added to or referenced in this project. So I've added the grid to this project, and so the grid shows up. If I go over here and I select like the charts, all of a sudden all the charts will show up in the toolbox. So whatever we've installed via NuGet plus what the default Xamarin UI widgets are will show up in this toolbox. It's super slick. But let me go ahead and just grab a XAM data grid. Oh no, Visual Studio and GoToMeeting, of course, don't like each other. So let's go ahead and open that guy again. Sorry about that. Let me close this out. All right, so I'm reopening my solution. You never know if these things will happen until you're actually running GoToMeeting, and apparently GoToMeeting didn't like what just happened. Oh, so that's the wrong sample. Go back to my configurator demo here. There we go. Okay, so I'll fill it up with some empty space. So the visual configurators right now, the grid one that you're going to see right now is brand new. So we just shipped this. It allows you to create your entire grid project. It actually allows you to visually configure your grid without you having to really type any XAML in. It's actually pretty incredible. So this guy here, I've got my main page view model. You saw that earlier. I'm going to go ahead and grab the XAM data grid again. And now what you're going to see is the familiar light bulb. So when you drag an Infragistics component into the XAML editor, you get this light bulb. And what that allows you to do is pop up the configurator itself. So now it's executing the action, and you'll see here I've got my visual configurator for the XAM data grid. And this is really the innovation that we're doing here with Xamarin. We are creating not the WYSWIWYG in the design surface, but something actually a little bit better. We're creating a WYSWIWYG that lets you set properties, but also integrate in with your data in this visual configurator. So you'll notice here we've updated the property editor. Everything that's disabled you really can't mess with yet. So it's saying, hey, go ahead and set an item source for this. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a binding. What the grid needs is something of IEnumerable. So I had that person object. I'm going to go ahead and create the binding for that. Now this is what's awesome, is if you recall when we looked at the person object, there I was dynamically generating data, and that was going to happen when the application actually ran. What we've done with this is no matter what your view model looks like, we are going to generate meaningful data for you so you can get the feeling of what this grid's going to look like before you really connect to your database. So I have my IEnumerable. I didn't execute any action to go pull data from a SQL database, populate my object, and then render it into the grid. We're actually doing all of this for you for free. So by default, I splatted in all of the columns that were based or that were part of my view model. What I want to do is go ahead and just add a few columns so I can configure this grid. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add first name, I'm going to add last name, I'm going to add job title, go ahead and do that, and we'll add salary. So I've added those 4 columns. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to uncheck auto generate columns. So now you'll see that I only get the columns that I care about. The other thing is across the top you've got a ribbon which allows you to set some of these properties as well, like auto generate. I can set some animations for column moving, etc., selection mode, and action. So I'm going to allow this to just do some sorting. Now if I select a particular column in the columns editor, the right-hand property editor will change and it'll allow me to actually customize that column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab salary, and I'm going to change some of the things about this column. So let's go ahead and change the font to 18, and you'll see that the font got bigger. I want to go ahead and change the header. Let's do the same thing to the header. I'll change the font size to 18 here. And now you'll notice that my header is going to change. I can change the text color. I can go ahead and change the background of the header, or actually of the text. So let's change the background. We have these beautiful brush editors that we've created. So we've done a lot of work here to make it super easy for you to just sort of customize this. Going back to like, this is almost as easy as doing something like VB6. And then there's other properties here like width, vertical alignment, the header text, and basically anything I want to do, including format string, which is actually pretty slick. So let me select my format string. Oh, and it should give me a money. I'm not sure what's happening here, but anyway, when I select one of the properties again in the columns on the left, you notice that the ribbon across the top changed as well. So let's go ahead, and we've got text, numeric, image. I can change whatever I want. The alignment for the columns. I can change the line break mode. So we've done a ton of work to really help you make this data more meaningful and then allow you to visually configure it. Now the best part is I go back here, I hit apply and close, I'll reformat this. All of this XAML was automatically generated for you. You don't have to do anything, including the binding. Now to see what this would look like I said, I already kind of did this earlier. I'm not going to make you watch me run it again, but I'll scroll down and get to the app in my emulator. Here's my using XAM data grid, and you can see here I've got the data, the fake data that we created. I've got my formatted column, and you'll see my scrolling works just like it should. And also if I tap a header, I'm getting the sort actions within the header as well. So you can see that the grid is interacting. I'm actually touching my screen on my surface here. So with the visual configurators, we're accelerating your time to development and deployment in extreme ways. I mean, this saves days, sometimes weeks, when you think about not only what it takes to learn Xamarin, but also to learn a new product like Ultimate UI for Xamarin from Infragistics. The visual configurators, the toolbox, and the app map are really accelerating that for you. And so that's the end of that demo. I know we're really running low here on time. We're actually near the end. But this is sort of a summary here on what's new in Ultimate 17.1. So mobile web desktop, prototyping, embedded analytics. I think some of the super exciting stuff when you think about mobile and web are not only the productivity innovations, but the really super rich components that we're shipping. So you think about being able to build a Xamarin app today with a full agenda schedule view, or being able to read and write Excel not only on the web, but on Xamarin as well with our Excel library for Xamarin, besides all of the productivity enhancements. And then obviously the things George showed you in Indigo Studio for record playback of your usability studies is super important, and it's something that if you look at any article today about what the CTOs and CEOs care about most moving into the next year and years after, it's user experience, it's customer experience. The only way to get the best experience is to talk to your users, prototype the experience, do usability studies, get feedback, and then iterate on that process as you develop your application. So Indigo Studio becomes a core part of your development strategy. So to get started, go to infragistics.com/products/ultimate to grab the trials. I showed you the screens where we had all of those sample apps. Highly recommend you might start with one of those. We also have a video library at /resources/videos, and then of course the blogs at /community/blog. So with that, we will end this webinar. I want to thank everyone who attended today. We had a lot of great questions. We'll be hanging out for a few more minutes to answer some more of those questions. Like I mentioned, James will be posting a follow-up summary in the next days with all of the Q&A. Jessica will email all of the attendees a link to the webinar where you can watch it again or share it with your colleagues. And I want to thank George and James as well for their demos today, and to thank all of you for coming. So thank you very much, and like I said, we'll stay online and answer questions over the next few minutes. So thanks again.